everyone. There we go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Speak Black Man podcast. This is season 6, episode number 7. Super excited about tonight's conversation featuring the king of black boy joy. I think I fan out every time I say that. I think about that. Super excited about tonight's conversation. So, I am your host, if you did not see, Jason B. Allen, better known as Professor JBA. And the Speak Black Man podcast is centered on building, connecting, and growing, whether it's yourself personally, your network, community. That's what we are focused on. So if you are watching tonight live on YouTube, Facebook, whichever medium or platform, please share this out with 5 people. I'm doing that right now myself. Boom. I just did it. Share this out with someone, get them connected to the live conversation. I want to go right into Jay's Corner so we can get into the conversation on this evening. Current events. Listen, I think they have this queued up and ready. Boom. If you go to the comments, there is a link to a very important conversation. This is why this conversation is so important. Everyone is seeing the changes happening in the U.S. Department of Education. A lot of parents and families are asking about how does this impact our children, especially our children who have 504s or SSTs, IEPs, IHPs, those who need additional assistance. Also, our accelerated students who are in gifted education programs that also falls under special education. And so I want everyone to go to the link inside of the comments to register for this event. This impacts everyone: teachers, educators, principals, school board members, community members, parents, families. Even if you were in the nonprofit education space, we all need to be in the know of what is going on in regards to the U.S. Department of Education, the role it plays, all of that. And so I went over with that announcement 30 seconds because education is power, and the more we know, the more we can connect people to these conversations, the better off we can support one another. I will go ahead and say this. Some of the questions that people have been asking are, how will this impact federal programs? Especially if you are in any urban, inner city, rural area. Federal programs receive their dollars from what? The U.S. Department of Education, right? We've been getting a lot of concerns and questions from parents who have children or students, young people who are graduating from high school in May. And they need what? Student financial aid to go where? Okay? Remember, that's connected to what? The U.S. Department of Education that has lost a lot of people. Let's also think about families who have children with disabilities, children who go to summer school. They rely on summer programs for food. Okay, I'm just saying, I'm just putting this out here for everybody to think about. So current events, go to that link. It's in the comment section. Make sure you get connected to that upcoming conversation. All right, now listen, make sure you save the date for the last Tuesday in September, okay? September 30th is Grandsgiving Day. This is our celebration for Lily's Foundation's 10th anniversary. It also is a celebration of National Grandparents Day and our program that supports grandparents and caretakers raising school-age children. So save the date for Tuesday, September the 30th. I'm looking for 100 people to donate $100. Now, if we can match that, that would be phenomenal. If we could get one person to do all of that, that would be even better. Hey, we can do this, right? I also want to say save the date for Saturday, October the 4th for our 10th anniversary gala. You are invited. Go to liliesfoundation.org to get your tickets. All right, that is enough talking from me. It's time for us to talk. But before we do that, our highlight for tonight, every episode we do a highlight. Tonight's highlight definitely, hands down, goes to PG. Profound Gentleman is celebrating 10 years uh, this week. It's phenomenal. CIA will be happening this week. And it actually connects to our special guest that's coming on this evening, who plays an intricate role in even why we're celebrating anything this week. And so, super thankful uh, for the legacy and role that he plays in that. But our highlight goes to Profound Gentleman. Let's make sure we continue to support male educators of color, which also teacher residency programs that are supported by what? The U.S. Department of Education in our universities across the United States are also being impacted. Okay, I'm just saying. I always try to put some information out there as I can. We're bringing on our guest for tonight. He is no stranger to the platform. Before it was even Speak Black Man, this brother was on Atlanta 101 with me. Before that, he was still on the platform. He's been there since the beginning. Mario, welcome back. Brother, it's good to have you on. I'm gonna pass the mic to you and tell the people who you are, a little bit about the work you have and are currently doing, and all of that good jazz.
First, I am a follower of the podcast. Absolutely love it. I think that it's amazing that you're honestly doing this, and I think the information that you're providing for folks is so important. So, thank you for continuing to do this work and sharing information. I think a lot of people take advantage of that. But yeah, my name is Marjavon, co-founder of Profound Gentleman, former chief officer, uh, what is it, chief impact officer, or senior impact leader is what we close with. But currently, I serve as a leadership coach. And yeah, I think like that is just where I'm at right now. And it's celebrating right 10 years of Profound Gentleman, and yeah, it's just been exciting. I've known you pretty much for majority of PG, so it's been awesome um, to be in this podcast before, like almost like the prequel before Friday actually occurred.
I am so excited about this. It's so timely too. You think about
Yeah.
10 years and being in DC and seeing how, as I just mentioned, teacher residency programs, other diversity initiatives that are impacting the very work that you helped to build 10 years ago are under attack right now. And so this is such a timely conversation, and I'm excited. I want to make sure I stay focused. I can see the people in the background now. Stay focused on the agenda. So listen, tonight's episode we are discussing the fight for maintaining mental health, managing life, and the messy roots of it all. And so
Mm,
that's the play
I
on
like that.
words because, of course,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, it'll get into the current work that you're doing with messy roots, and that's going to be a powerful conversation. I know we're going to go over time, and I just hope the people rock with us and the people in the background don't cuss me out too badly. But I want to get right into it. Seriousness, mental health. Um, with black men, black boys, and the black community, black men specifically, though.
Hmm.
Um, I can share with you that since January of this year, I've had three classmates who have passed away, all around um, mental health and wellness issues. Fathers who have left behind children. And mental health is a real thing. We're in a really bad recession. Um, and on top of that, we have the attacks on areas where many people thrived in under diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how it did open up doors for uh, black people who were able to get into rooms that we traditionally have not been in. And so I wanted you to maybe speak to some of the things that you are hearing from in your work as a coach, in community with others, and also just from maybe your own personal experience around mental health. Wanted to give you a few moments to speak on that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's really kind of like the most interesting thing is that when I was starting Profound Gentleman, one of the most interesting things to me was the fact of no matter that we're doing the work on the ground and actually truly supporting some of like the hardest hit areas in education and in different counties and stuff. And I was just 24, going on 25 years old, starting an organization, and that experience pushed me to think about how I actually take care of myself. What does it look like for me to seek support? And definitely when you're talking about the impact that you actually want to make, it requires a level of sacrifices. So we started Profound Gentlemen in 2015. 2016 is when Trump was in office the first time. So we experienced majority of my time, specifically when I was in Profound Gentlemen, under the Trump presidency. I wouldn't say that nothing isn't new, because there are things that are new. Um, but I do think that they pretty much only have like one trick. And I've been really refocusing my mind on what they're actually trying to do, instead of like boggling myself up and the fact that that I'm the problem. I think oftentimes when we see what the government is actually doing, we start to ingrain some of the stuff that's actually happening. Say, well, what are we doing? Like, why we haven't done this right? And da 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 da. Versus actually looking at what they're not doing, and perhaps the threat that we present to their existence. So when I first started Profound Gentlemen, I was off anxiety meds. When I left Profound Gentlemen, I was on anxiety medication. And so there was a sacrifice there. I don't think that we talk about that enough. I'm still on anxiety meds too. I actually really, really like being on anxiety medication. It just helps to regulate me. But then I also meditate and stuff, like both things can happen at the same time. And it helps me to stay focused and to actually want to do this work. So I'm actually always thinking about how we're supporting folks on the ground, so what we call social impact leaders doing this work,
Yeah,
because it's heavy and we need folks to be able to actually do it,
yeah.
and
No,
so like,
that's big.
yeah,
That's big because doing
yeah,
the work is different than being able to tweet about it and post about it and do, it's different when you're on that side of what people call the movement or the work. When you're in community, that means like you're not in maybe even physical community, but in the work of supporting those who are on the ground every day, working with families, working with children, working with the elderly, working with the most vulnerable in our community, providing them with resources, feeding them, clothing them, making sure they have what they need, doing programming. That's a lot. It takes a lot out of you because it's ministry work. However, I'm not even gonna go down that road. I'm not gonna go down that avenue today because we are on a limited time. I do want to make this plug and say mental health again, everyone. Make sure that whatever you want to frame it as, self-care, mental health, your health and wellness, your workout plan, your start of the year fast, or however you do the method of making sure that your body is sound, your mind is sound, your finances are sound, whatever that looks like. Make sure that you do it consistently. A good friend of mine, Barney Jackson, has an organization, Every Color Matters, that's pushing a campaign that says, "Don't wait. Don't wait to go get your physicals. Don't wait to go get tests. If you have a headache more than 2 days, go see what's up. Let's talk to somebody. Say, hey, I keep having these headaches. Something's going on." Make sure you have those conversations. All right, let's go into Um, I'm curious about this managing life and kind of going through the journey of building in this time. It's like very interesting. I think that over the last 10 years, we've seen um, a boom of organizations. Like my family's foundation is 10 years this year as well. And so I'm just
Hmm.
thinking about how it was something around that time period where people were really like birthing and building organizations based on need. And so I'm just curious in the space of like assessment and reflection, like from then to now, what do you see that has that's on my top five for the conversation. So I'm like, yeah, this is like going into my third thing. What are maybe some of the growths that you have seen over these last 10 years in the work?
Yeah, no, one of the things that I 100% seen with like the growth over the work throughout the work is when it's actually I was in DC this past weekend and I was at the Black Male Educator Conference for KIP DC.
Yes.
And there was a good amount of folks that were there, and they were like, "Oh, we were sitting at a table, and it was like, oh, you're celebrating 10 years this year, right? October 31st will be officially, 10 years of PG." Um, and going back to that moment, I forgot that like Jason and I were one of the first people that started this type of work. I constantly think about how we were doing it together, collectively with talking to other organizations. So I really do. I don't believe in a mono like leader. I don't believe that there should only be one person. So oftentimes I think when we look at the black community, we focus so much on Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, or Medgar Evers versus the complete community, the complete everybody who was at the table, right?
Yeah,
And I think we do too much of focusing on just like one leader. It really does require collaboration. So over the 10 years, what I love to think about, because it's bittersweet to me. I mean, I think like celebrating PG for 10 years, it's bitter because it is. I don't think I didn't never think that it would take us 10 years to actually accomplish our mission. I didn't think we would need 10 years, right? Like crazy was I, but because I did. I At the very beginning, I always believed that nonprofits, and Jason kind of mentioned this as well. Jason, my business partner, he mentioned like at the end of the day, nonprofits are not supposed to last, right? Like we supposed to
yeah,
come in, fulfill a mission, and be done. And so when I think about 10
that's
years, it is
good. That's good.
bittersweet. It's a moment to think about the fact that, yeah, I mean, it's 10 years, but at the same time, in our prime from 2015 to 2018 of PG, or 2015 to 2019, going into, 2020 was obviously COVID. A lot of people don't mention it. There was 6.5% of us as black male educators. We had actually exceeded that 2%. We had exceeded the black male population. We don't necessarily talk about that because right now we're at 1.3%. So we
Yeah,
didn't go from 2% to 1.3%. We went from 2.2% to 6.5% to 1.3%. So when you think about that drastic number and what that actually mean for black students and black kids, the 10 years is kind of interesting. And I think like the things that we really need to focus on is how are we making sure that nonprofit organizations, when they are in operation, that they're actually fulfilling their mission before they close versus closing doors because they no longer have money. This is
that's
not a
good.
sustainable, yeah, it's just not a sustainable, like it's not a sustainable model, right? Nonprofit is you're supposed to fulfill something and then leave. So over the 10 years, what I love is to see what I have loved is watching some of these other organizations pop up. But one of the things that I'm not necessarily seeing that was big when we were starting between that 2015 and 2019 period is the collaboration. It's a lot of orgs that are working in isolation. I mean, we was working with the fellowship all the time before they turned it to the Center for Black Ed. And Dr. Will Hayes, he reminded me this weekend, he was like, yo, like, we went to you all like to ask y'all about how to create like this community of black male educators. For some reason I thought it was the other way around, but they're only 8 years of an organization, so I did not know. I thought we all started at the same time. It was like, no, we reached out to you. And so that right there is what I could celebrate, is the fact that like after us other organizations did come about
Yeah,
and they're still existing. You
that's
know,
major.
but it's important for us to think about how do we continue to collaborate, because if we got to 6.5%, and which was larger than, the black male population in the states, then we could do that again. And we saw, and last thing I would say is that when you look at the test scores, the NAEP scores between 2016 and 2018, you actually see that they did go up, specifically fourth grade reading,
Yeah,
as it relates to black male educate, as it relates to black students, and I feel like black male educators had a part to play in that. More specifically, I think about uh, um, the boys that do the work in college, call me Mister, because
oh
their
yeah,
program specifically focused on elementary. So I don't know how much it was PG because we focus on retention and leadership. But when you think about the amount of black men that were graduating from Call Me Mister, and then they would join PG. I mean, that was grand, and that was because of collaboration.
yeah. I love the highlighting of
Hmm.
collaboration, the power of collaboration, the need for collaboration, and also the thought behind one of the things that Claude Anderson talks about in Powernomics and how we build these systems to dismantle parts of the system. It's an ongoing process, and
Hmm.
nonprofits aren't supposed to you know continue on forever. They're supposed to change, supposed to grow, they're supposed to evolve maybe into a business development, a business venture, so it's supposed to evolve into something that is um, different. And so I commend what you say. I'm looking at even the work that we've done with Lily's Foundation, and we were saying that wow, a lot of the grandkids when we started the foundation, they were in elementary school. Now they are graduating high school. That was a big part of our work, is helping grandparents and caretakers, get their grandchildren through K through 12 and then off to
Hmm.
college. Well, now that we've done that, it's been 10 years. What's next? And so, how do we evolve? How do we change? What does that look like? I think that's a big part of transition planning. And what does your next step look like? Which takes us into the messy roots of it all. And what you're doing now with Messy Roots, that impactful work that is needed, especially around coaching. And there's a great there's a great need. I know you can't save the world, but there's a great need for coaching with so many areas of workforce development, community, education, business, healthcare. I could go down the gamut, but talk to us a little bit about Messy Roots and your current work.
Well, yeah, I think like that was the biggest thing for me. Once I, got done with Profound Gentlemen, and I always say this. I'm not opposed to talking about this, but like, kind of pushed out a little bit, but also interested in going in different ventures and areas. But one of the things that was important for me on my journey, um, as I was thinking about what next after Profound Gentlemen, was the fact that my purpose is my purpose and it's not attached to a specific organization. It is really about how do I continue to support social impact leaders around the world now. Like that's exactly how I see it now, because it's like I'm supporting social impact leaders everywhere. But like, how do I support social impact leaders around the world? And I knew that I could not do that by myself. I knew that we needed to have a variety of coaches in order to do that. So I felt like honestly the biggest thing for me was how when you feel unqualified, how do you still actually do the work? And how do you prepare yourself when you're in a role that you know perhaps you are not necessarily fully ready for yet, but through some development you could be there. And so that's what Messy Roots that's what we have been able to do. We actually been able to provide coaching certifications for those who want to become coaches for social impact leaders. It's not just leadership coaching in general. We're not trying to coach business people. We're looking at what it's like to coach individuals in multiple different social impact areas. Number one being education. Then number two, we see healthcare being a big thing. And then number three
Yes.
is like those who are in the nonprofit spaces. So it's just been really awesome. We have almost 600 people in our network. Over 100 of our folks within that network have gone on to get our coaching certification, and it's just been amazing to be able to see the impact. And what we want to do is make it easier for social impact leaders to have a variety of coaches that they could be able to choose from. Last thing I say is I know that we are like millennials are very like transient. We move everywhere. We're not necessarily just in one place, and definitely as it relates to um, city location, but also job, right? Like
Yeah.
you'll be lucky if you see somebody stay in a role for 2 to 3 years. And so I believe that all leaders should be in the business of developing folks to become leaders. Leadership is a verb. And so how are we utilizing that? Because we you need to be a part of the 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 game, not the game, but you need to be a part of like
Yeah,
the
the game.
pool, right? Like of individuals who are training other folks, right? So then when your person go and you receive another person, you know that they have been trained well. I think that's the cool part that I love is the fact that like I'm really helping leaders to understand that like your job is not to try to keep them. That's secondary. Your job is to grow them. And so like even in Profound Gentlemen, when folks, was interested in transitioning to something else, they would be able to have a conversation with me because your boss, your current boss, should be the number one person that you should be able to go to, right? In order to say, hey, I'm interested in going into this particular role. But people are scared, to talk to
Yeah.
their boss about interested in,
Anything.
in doing a different role or
Yeah.
yeah, anything. And so it's really interesting to see the I think it's really interesting to see like the conversation that is being had with the folks that are in our network. It's dope to see that.
That's good. And I mean, a lot of people need that outlet. I know, conversations around like promotions and, especially in this recession and, compensation for overtime or, needing more, all of those things. It's a very tense atmosphere having or needing to have these type of conversations in the workforce. Also thinking about health services and again like the pressure um, that are in these different areas and needing that support system is so important. And I'm glad that you highlighted that
Yeah.
and uplifted that. I want to ask you this because I know we are right about at time. So I want to ask this: uh, what books are you reading that are keeping you grounded in this moment?
That's a good question. I think so. I'm always reading like multiple books. But I'm reading Zoniel Hurston's book about Moses. I've been really deep in the story about Moses because he was super unqualified to be a leader. But yet again, God tapped him to be able to do the work. Um, and it was his unqualifications, him not being liked on both sides, that actually made him the right
Okay.
person to be able to do it. So I have been really fascinated by that. But also Zora Hurston's life, she quote unquote died poor. But people say that, obviously she died wealthy because she supported so many people. But Zona Hurston was not popular during her time, right? And I think like we have so many leaders that are so interested in wanting to be celebrities and to always
Oh
talk
yeah.
and everything like that versus
Oh yeah.
actually just really doing the work. And so that's one. The other one is Love and Whiskey by Fawn Weaver. I'm just super fascinated by Fawn, who is the CEO of Uncle Nearest. Her birthday is the same day as my mom's birthday. And I
Okay.
absolutely just love the journey of hearing about Nearest Green. And she creates a very equitable a story about Jack Daniels as well. You know, I've really been really rethinking DI, rethinking everything that's actually happening. It's a lot of just like stuff, right? Like it's like we could sit here and complain about what's going on, or we could actually we
We
could do
could do
both, right?
something. Right. We could do
Well, we have
something
to address.
about it.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing, and I think what I learned from both stories is addressing the source, right? Like addressing the source of the problem. Like we're very like reactionary and things like that versus like actually like if I'm thinking about right now, definitely something that's really important as relates to the national parent network that you union that you do. Like what's really interesting is the fact that most likely we are going to get to parents first, passed by Congress, right? We're going to, the voucher is probably going to pass, I mean, going to go with the students, right? Like, what is the benefit of that, or how do we prepare parents for that right now versus waiting for the hammer to drop, right?
Yeah.
Could it be more of a benefit for Black students to have that? What does the data say? And what measures actually need to be in place if that is something that is going to happen. So um I'm reading a
That.
lot of
I love
books
that.
right now. Yeah, I'm reading a lot of books right now that is challenging my thought process. Ruha's another book I'm reading, and
Oh,
she does her work. I mean, her thoughts around DEI and saying like it was trash anyway is real. Like, DEI was actually just the first step. When you look at the data, majority white women are the ones that actually got those roles. It wasn't
like
Black
affirmative
people.
action.
And so yeah, so it really wasn't like when you think about all of the different things, when you think about, I know that you've been mentioning DEI, but when you think about DEI and like the impact that it's really had, like it was just supposed to be like the first step. Like they can't take away our Blackness, they can't take away who we are, queerness, they can't take away your
Oh yeah.
gender. You are going to show up just who you are. So
The
DI
work
was
will
is a
continue. The
word.
work is gonna
it's
always go
it's a
forward.
100% going to
You just
continue.
have
So
to
I'm
ride the wave and know and learn how to,
yeah.
ride the wave. And I know that over the 10 years that we've been in the nonprofit space doing this work, you learn how to ride the wave. And that's why I'm asking you these questions around what do you read? How are you centering yourself? Because a lot of people who are in the space will get caught up, they will get overwhelmed. And we are serving the people, and the people need us. And
Surprising,
we
and I
have
was
to.
yeah, yeah. Surprisingly, I would say honestly, I have not been caught up, right? And I think it's a blessing. I mean, and the
Oh
thing is,
yeah.
I'm super proximate to the people that I'm supporting. So, like, I think that's what's so interesting to me. The folks that I am support. I mean, I'm. It's funny how like I was quickly. I was at a dinner last year for BME at the BMEC in Philly. Uh, and literally, like the guys who's at the table, I was sitting, I was like, "Oh, I coach you, I coach you, I coach you, I coach you," and these are all like EDs of like Black male education nonprofits or just Black nonprofits and education nonprofits in general. And it was interesting listening to them speak and the way that they're still thriving, still to this day. Like,
Yeah.
and you asked that question earlier, like, what is some of like the green light moments in a sense that we're seeing? Like, it's interesting how much they are still thriving and that the work still matters. And so we could get caught up in like this narrative of like, woe is us type of thing, or we could actually be like, you know what? Like this is the work I was called to do. And on top of that, like when we're called to do this work, they're like Darren just told me this. He said that the difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice.
That's right.
And if
That
we're in a
is true.
movement, then there is a level of sacrifice. I can say for the past 20 years, I don't know anything else but sacrifice because I love this work and it's not about I do. I don't do it for specifically me. I love doing it for the next generation
Yeah.
of folks, and I've always been that way. And I think that's the part that is the dopest. And I think that's what I love when I'm hearing you talk about your foundation, when you're talking about your full time work, and even conversations I even heard you discuss on this podcast. I might get a little bit of trinkets of it, but I'm doing this work so that when I die, hopefully as an angel and as an ancestor, I'm able to do the work in the spiritual realm. So like I'm just trying to like protect. I'm like I just got to keep on doing this work,
Yeah. Now you got to keep
so that
on
I
doing
can
the
do this
work.
work when I die.
I feel you on that. I want to share too. I just got this book. It's super dope. But okay, let me share it this way. Plantation politics. You know, everything got to be Olivia Pope for me. But Rashana Cosby is the author of this book. It is super amazing. It talks about her experience in public service, and notice I said public service and not politics, but navigating politics as a public servant. That's one of the books that I'm reading. It's work related, but it's also really good just to read people's stories and
Hmm.
experiences. I'm also reading this cool book around technology, digitally invisible, how
Mm.
the internet is creating the new underclass. So, how
And
to
I
serve
think
the people
I know, right?
and the digital
I know,
divide
I
that
know.
we're seeing. Yeah,
My
it's
only
interesting.
thing, my only thing is like, how are we continuing to actually create like solutions ahead of time, right? Like I remember IBM back in 2017 when they reached out to us for PG and they said, "Hey, AI is coming down the road.
Yeah.
We want to partner with you all to think about what AI looks like, right?" And so like, we actually funny thing is I won't mention the organization, but the funny thing is the funder are now supporting AI. But when we went to them to say, hey, we would love to have funding to focus on Black people in AI, it just wasn't a part of their priority at the time, right? And so,
Oh
like,
yeah.
and I'm not blaming them or anything like that, but that is the risk that we experience when we are doing majority of our work through nonprofits versus
Yeah.
actually having some for-profit organizations. Like, again, Dr. Will Hayes said it this week. He said, somebody got to make money. And because somebody got to have these for profits, because in the time of need, we have to be on that other end of like making stuff. Like I think like
Oh, let's
it's
go
so
there
much
though, because
defense
when
right
we think
now.
about our
Hmm.
ancestors and what they see, Madam C.J. Walker, so many of them, they were millionaires and billionaires of their time, and they took that money and gave it to the organizations and community, which during that time maybe were the nonprofits of their day,
They
so
were,
that they
yes,
could do that work, and it would be a programming sense, and the programming is helping build the workforce. It helps build me money,
that's
so in a
right.
sense I'm investing back in community to grow and develop. And it's kind of like what we learn if you're in
That's
church or you're
good.
in your faith base, like you sow in the good
Hmm.
ground, and then when it's a harvest that you reap, it's like, hey, I did sow
Hmm.
this back at this time when I had this, and now it's come back maybe in a time when I did need a little bit of something. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
So,
That's
but we
right.
don't have that mindset. People are like, oh, let me get this, and then I need to get that, and then I need to get because and no Tino Shades and Nicki Minaj and some of the other, modern rappers that are influencing this culture, but that's what their music is. It's like, let me get this, and let me get this, and let me get a bag, and let me get this bag, but let me get this bag to get this because I need to get this because I'm never really satisfied. I'm never really happy
Well, that's
because
white shit. You know
yeah.
what I mean? I don't mean to
I'm
cut,
just well since
but
we
it
go on
is.
there, like we got
Yeah.
45. They said one more minute, but I'm just saying since we're really there, like because those are the STEM issues.
Yes.
But when we're talking, let me say this: when we're in community and we're talking
Yeah.
about social emotional learning, we're talking about our books and how we need to focus on our mindset and dealing with our trauma. When we're talking about these things and saying, hey, we need to have real conversations about why we put up these barriers within our own community, people are like, yeah, I want to hear that. I want to hear that shit. I'm just being, and that's exactly what they say. So I'm
Yeah.
quoting them and using that language, but that is exactly what people will say to us about our work is that they don't have time for it. But at the end of the day, it all connects. And that is the center of it. When you don't have a good mindset, then you will be like, oh, I do need to. I'm always got to, I'm never satisfied. I have to keep buying. I have to keep searching. I have to when you searching what you need is, I'm just saying, that's the work that we do every day, and people never tune into what we're saying, but they'll tune into other people who are giving messages that don't speak to mind, body, and soul.
Hmm. No, I mean, I definitely
See, you done took
agree
us
with that.
into another.
No, I
Okay, listen.
mean,
I was gonna get on the lighter
yeah.
note. I love your
Well,
background with the plants. It's almost
yeah,
spring. It's
yeah.
almost spring. I'm gonna ask you this one last
Spring is
question, and
Friday.
then we're gonna
Yeah,
go to final thoughts.
yeah,
What is your favorite plant? I know you are a plant dad.
yeah.
What is your favorite plant, or one of your favorite plants?
Well, no, I have a favorite plant, and plenty times, I honestly, this plant behind me, it hates me saying that, and usually a leaf will fall off of this plant because I said that's not my favorite plant. I don't like fiddle leaf figs. I happen to want to be this plant person, so I got like the most famous plant, and I was able to grow it, but it's okay. My favorite plant is a monstera plant because of its roots, and that is messy roots
I
logo
love it.
because the roots, if you're not watering a monstera plant, it will actually grow roots outside of the soil to find moisture in the air. And that's my personality. My personality is very much so like if you're not going to like give me something, I'm going to find out a way to be able to make it happen. I am not I never settle for anything. It's probably an issue in dating for me still. Like I terrible. I'd rather be single than settle with anything. And then also just I love the idea with the monstera of it oftentimes creates a mess with some of the roots because it just grows everywhere, right? In order to find that moisture inside of the air so that it can survive. So that just represents my leadership. I feel like I got a
I
monstera
love
on my
that.
leg. I got like probably like five monstera tattoos.
Okay, I love that. That takes us
Yeah.
perfectly into our final thoughts of the evening as we get ready to close out the show. Tell us your final thoughts. It's Women's History Month. We're celebrating Black uh, 365, but we also are celebrating being in community.
Yeah.
So, what are your final thoughts on any final words, inspiration that you may want to leave with us?
Well, I honestly would say I think we are honestly I think understanding us as people and constantly centering this mode or this heart to want to be steeped in community that is within us. And I think my final words is like white shit is like this singular thing, a singular hero. Only the strong survive. There's only one person to win, right? Like when I think about some of my greatest work that inspired me to do Messy Roots, and this is literally my final thoughts around it is really the impact leaders are part of Profound Gentlemen. At the end of the day, if it wasn't for the Forever Impact Leaders, is the group that they affectionately call themselves after 25 of them retired from Profound Gentlemen. But it I think is so awesome about that group is truly the idea that that Ubuntu spirit, right? That Sankofa like welcoming energy. And that right there is something that we continue to talk about. We talked about over this past weekend, me and Darren and I, just literally about like, that's where leaders were really cultivated. So if you look at the Forever IL group, and where folks are at. I mean, they are in powerhouse areas. So the idea is to never try to keep anybody, but how do you establish community? And freedom is allowing folks to move on and to grow. And so my final words is really continuing to think about how are we um creating leaders, right? And
I love it.
establishing leaders and putting people in places in order to do this work. So I'm super excited about honestly this year because we don't have 4 years to wait. We don't even have 2 years.
That's right.
We have to
That's
figure out
right.
ways of collaboration with Trump. I was upset in November. I was like, F him. I'm not even thinking about that. But having such a purple state here in North Carolina, more purple than Georgia, in my opinion. Um, but I think that bipartisan is the best route to go. I don't believe in Democrat or Republican, because there's never a mono. Again, this idea of mono is just ridiculous to me. That's what I'm learning. I mean, literally in the past 2 weeks, is that even femininity and masculinity, everything is just so like, the Moses story really helped me to see that. And that's so funny that I went to the Bible, because the Bible could be so
I want
rigid.
us to. We're gonna come back to this. I want
Yeah.
us to come back to
That's my
this
story though.
in a
Yeah.
part two
Yeah.
because that Moses story is so important, and it is actually a
It's
part two
real right
because
now.
it is really speaking to this time and what leaders need to hear. And so I'm gonna
Trump
follow
is
up with you
Pharaoh.
on this on the part two of the in this season because I really do want to come back to this conversation, and I'm gonna probably write a reflection piece on this and get the book title because I have a Zora Neale Hurston. You don't know us Negroes
Hmm.
that
I never
I
heard of that one. I
received
need to look at that.
from
Yeah.
Spelman a
Oh
couple
wow.
of weeks ago that I'm getting ready to get into once I finish these two
I think those gonna be
powerful
good. Tell
um,
me how those gonna
books.
be.
Yes, I
Yeah.
will be giving some recaps on
Yeah.
here. But Mario,
Please.
the king of Black Boy Joy, thank you for being on the podcast. This is episode 7 of season 6 of the Speak Black Man podcast. It has been phenomenal. My final thoughts are make sure you're taking care of yourself, community, family. Cherish the day because we never know what the time may bring. I also will say go to educationalentities.com that you see at the bottom of the screen. Follow, tag someone, subscribe. Make sure you also get a copy of the Speak Black Man book that we celebrated 5 years of our annual day at the Capitol. This year, the program, boom, is right here behind me. You see it matches the branding for Speak Black Man. But make sure that you go to the website and get connected to all things. Again, this is episode 7 featuring the king of Black Boy Joy, Mario Javon Shaw of Messy Roots, also one of the co-founders of Profound Gentlemen. That is our organization. We're highlighting this year, celebrating CIA and their 10-year anniversary. Again, everybody, thank you so much for being connected to the Speak Black Man podcast. See you next Monday, 7:15 p.m. Peace and love, everyone.